She cooks nothing but chuck wagon stew, and her name is Minerva. Ouch! She's the flower of the coward coach.
Welcome, folks. It's once again time to see how long I can drag that out. Welcome, folks. It's once again time for Aaron Live, that show that promises nothing and delivers even less. It is the selling season. That's right. We have a new campaign running called Wraith of God 3 Fear Hollow. And that was the trailer you just saw. We're going to have today, we'll have as a special guest the artist who did the special guest artist cover, cover number D, or cover D. I guess it wouldn't be number D, would it? But cover D of your 4 cover options for Wraith of God 3 Fear Hollow. Yes, that's Chris Stevens. He'll be joining us in a little bit as soon as we get through with the inaugural nonsense that we do here on the show. One of those things is that I encourage everybody that watches this show, and I know it's a big ask just to get you to watch the show, but if I've suckered you into at least doing that, could I also sucker you into this public service announcement? Watch closely, please. That's right. Like and subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. I'd greatly appreciate it. We've got Halloween coming up, the month of Halloween, I guess. Funny, I'm a monster guy, but I'm not a big Halloween guy. But I was when I was a kid, and I was a little bit as a young adult. But when you start having kids and you find out that there's certain things that scare the crap out of your kids, you stop doing them. So yeah, I pulled back quite a bit. Now it's like the kids are gone, so it's like, meh. We give out candy to the little patrons of the neighborhood, but we don't really do too much decorating or anything like that. But anyway, why did I say that? I said that because that justifies me showing Frankenstein, because we're like knocking on the door of October. So, and I'm always about Universal Monsters. I'm also always about
Drink good.
Yes, exactly. No, I don't drink, but occasionally. I'm a beer a year guy. I admit it. I freely admit it.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm about eating too. Unfortunately, we're not going to do any snacks on the show today because I didn't get any. I used up all my snacks yesterday watching my Nebraska Cornhuskers beat Purdue Boilermakers. Like, the game started at 9 a.m. my time, West Coast time. And it was so weird because by the time the game was over, then we went out and worked in the garage, and we got a dumpster, and we've been, hauling stuff out, getting rid of stuff. And I was just like exhausted. Okay, I'm done for the day. What's for dinner? I looked, it was 2:30 in the afternoon. I was like, what? When you get up that early, you start your day that early. On a Saturday, it's like the day goes on forever. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should get out of bed more often. But I did get up at 8 on Saturday, which to me is like, that's almost like blasphemy, to go get donuts because my son was coming up to watch the game. So we had donuts and fun things like that. So I got up at 8, and it's very strange on a football Saturday to have the game over by noon. Usually that's about the time they're starting. But one thing that's good about it, it does allow you to still have most of your day left, which we used productively around here, I just want to say. So anyway, let's say hello to the folks, the fine folks in the chat, and see what we can get through here before Chris joins us at about 23 minutes. Leg Kick is here because Leg Kick, of course, is almost always here. Creative Face says, hi, Aaron and Shelley and special guest Chris. I am excited to hear who won the raffle. That's the other thing we'll be revealing very shortly, is who won the raffle for this fine piece of Wraith artwork. You get it absolutely free. It was anybody that backed the campaign before midnight on the first day that it was open was eligible for winning. My mom, my 93-year-old sweet old mother, drew numbers out of a hat, and it's all on her. So we'll reveal that shortly. Mark Pengren has a message for Chris. His beautiful Wraith cover. Chris will make sure he hears that. Repairman Jack is here. Glad to see our football teams are back on track this week. Go Irish, go Cornhuskers. There you go. He's helping me. I'm not a big Irish fan, but hey, if he's gonna support me, I'll support him. So go Irish. Randy Howell, all the way from Canada. Dan, the Pizza Man Genovese, is here. The Angry Gamer, of course, is joining us. Stealth X5, Nordic Nerd, Fox Molders in the house. Spaceman is joining us. Marcus Killer Group, purveyor of all things pop culture knowledge, is joining us. Past Master Dan, waiting is such sweet sorrow or something. Indeed, it is. But I was on time today. Cannot criticize me for not being on time. Cole King is here. Says, great. Hey, brother, great to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Wizard Sleeves is joining us, of course. Bretsky the Great. GJ Martinez, he says, okay, I made it. Hello, chat, and hello, Aaron Lepresti. I wouldn't miss this episode even if my wife chained me down. I'm not going to get into your personal life, but let's not hope that it gets too drastic over there. Show Me Comics is here. Says Porky is hilarious. Indeed, he is, especially when Chuck Jones directs a Daffy and Porky cartoon. Nothing better than that. Kevin Tomsett, all the way across the pond, is joining us. Luffy is God is joining us. Who else we got here? Nate 313 lost some money this week. Lions better win. As a young man, I would watch college football all day Saturday. Then I would watch pro football all day Sunday. And then, of course, during basketball season, I'm always watching basketball. And I started to realize as I got older and had a job, and then I got a wife, and then I got kids, it was like, I cannot spend 2 days, both days of the weekend, doing nothing but watching football. So I said I enjoy college football the most, so that's what I'll stick with. And so I kind of keep touch with pro football, but I don't regularly watch it. Monday night, I'll catch some of it. Occasionally on a Sunday, if I'm down, got a few minutes, I'll watch a little bit of a game. But of course, being from the great Northwest, that's no longer great, but just being from the Northwest, we don't have a team up here anyway, except Seattle, and I'm not rooting for Seattle. So, I don't really have the buy-in that teams that, the cities that actually have teams. And I certainly am not one to gamble. I never have been, because what little money I'm able to eke out in my, I'm not going to take a chance on throwing away. My gambling is on eBay for old comics. Stealth X5. Stealth X5 for $2. Hello. Thank you, Stealth. Appreciate it. It's one of the constants in the universe is the Stealth X5, $2. Constantinus is here. Robert Dones Pills is joining us. Ryo Stew. Show Me Comics. I've been watching Universal Pictures B and W movies. The B movies and the W movies. The black and white movies. You have to tell me twice. Let's see here. Marcus Killigrew saying 8 a.m. is late. Well, if you have a real job and a real life, I'm sure it is. But for me, early. Geek Avenger for 10. Thank you, Geek. Hi, hail, Aaron, the snack list. Money for snacks. Please say hi to Shelly. I will do that. She's been sick all week. We had double duty on the baby last weekend, and the day after we got back, she was sick and is still got a really horrible cough, but she's hanging in there. But thank you very much. I will pass on your goodwill and cheers to her. Thank you. Frankie's joining us. Spaceman Aaron, did you see how Dan fixed up his Greybeard's Wraith piece on his stream with Shanth? Super cool stream. It looked great. All I know is that was not a black horse when the show was over. That's all I can say. Well, let's see. GJ says, actually, I was watching a replay for this X-Force pinup, and this new Aaron Live time threw me off. So I will continue to watch that video much later today. There you go. Got to watch the live stuff live, and you watch the tape stuff whenever. Torchbearer Studios is joining us. Jay Dredd, of course. Alex is here. Lark Bark joining us. Thank you for that. McShort is joining us. Thank you. Frankie's here. Randy Howell is incredulous. Only 31 likes. Come on, people. You know, the funny thing is a lot of viewership now comes from Twitter, or X, as they say. So like half our audience right now is on X. So they can't like the show because they're on X. So that's just the way it goes. Lord Hinson Comics Gator is joining us. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. All right. So let's take a look at the campaign because I got to do it. Here, this is your infomercial for today. And then we'll announce the winner of the artwork. It's so exciting. There it is, Wraith of God, number 3, Fear Hall. I already just played the trailer, so I won't play it again. All right, we're at $42,722. You only need to get to 100 grand to make this a real thing, but that's not really true because even if I didn't make another penny, I would do this and ship it out to you guys even if I lost money. But because I'm all about integrity. And but we know that's not going to happen. So, but if you haven't backed yet, and a lot of people haven't yet, let's take a look here. The story is pretty simple. The Wraith and Esther journey to Cranestown in New England to challenge a horror from the past, the Headless Horseman. The evil that menaced the Wraith 20 years earlier has returned with a vengeance. But is there more to this showdown than meets the eye? I think there is. Will the fear that shaped his destiny as a young man, a young lad, will it ultimately now destroy their lives? Wraith of God 3 is not to be missed. And I have to second that and say that Wraith of God 3 is not to be missed. So here's your cover options. You have the good old cover A. You have the good old cover B, which is a tribute cover to the EC comics of the 50s. Of course, you have Wraith of God, the cover option C, which is the Marvel retro cover from specifically about 1972 is when Marvel did these box covers like this. So that's your third option. Then, of course, your fourth option is the great Chris Stevens painted cover. This is cover D option. So you can get any one of these you want. You can buy all 4 of them. There's plenty of options. This, of course, is some pages from David Williams and mine. David did the artwork, of course. I wrote it. This is for the backup story, the Imperius origin story, who's a major player in the Lopresti-verse that we've only seen on a sticker at this point. And there'll be a trading card with your Kit Carter books as well. But this is a stretch goal. We have to hit 100K to include this in the book, or I wouldn't have the budget to do it. So I have all confidence that we're eventually going to get to 100K. So we will, we'll just leave this out there as a bit of a carrot, if you will. Stretch goals, 40,000. We've already hit that. The first one, which is the Lopresti verse retro editorial page with character value stamp added to the book. You'll remember those from the first 2 issues of Wraith of God. $60,000, we're going to get a sculpture trading card. She's one of the characters from the nightclub. At $80,000, we're going to get a trunk trading card, who is also another character from the nightclub. At 100, the Empirist backup origin story gets added to the book, which we just talked about. At 125, we're going to add spot gloss to that EC tribute cover. That's going to be pretty cool looking. At 150, I don't know, be something cool though. So what are some of the add-ons you can get? You can get the art, you can get the Wraith Nouveau print. These are all signed and numbered, limited to 500. Once that 500 is sold, it'll be taken off the market. Wraith of God Roughs Volume 3. This is the layouts, the page layouts for the book. And so you can get your book, you can get your roughs, and you can kind of thumb through the roughs and go, oh, here's page 15. What does it look like in the actual book? This is what the layout process was that led to the finished product. So that's always kind of cool. These come signed and numbered and limited to orders. So there's never any extras of these, or very few. Like I always order a little bit more in case there's damage to the books, which I've had happen before. So there will be a few extras, but not many. You can get your nightclub shot glass. That is the 4th in this series of 6 shot glasses that are part of the overall Loprestiverse set. We've done Wraith of God, we've done Garbage Man, we've done Kit Carter, and now we're doing the nightclub. You can get a set of these 3 commemorative poker chips. These are a lot of fun. These are clay poker chips, the heavy duty ones. They'll have an image of the Wraith, an image of Esther, and an image of Keown's werewolf, and then the Empire Comics logos on the back of these. So they're very cool. And you can order issues 1 and 2 if you missed them. But here's a little secret. Just a little secret. You can get these on my website too, and you can get them immediately. However, on my website, this number 2, Wraith of God number 2, I believe is $30 instead of $25. So they're cheaper on the campaign, but if you got to have it right now, you can go to my website and order. And of course, original art I had up for sale is all sold. I've been promising to put more up. I just haven't got around to it. Forgive me. I did finish all the Kit Carter headshots that are going out with the Kit Carter Completist perk from the Kit Carter campaign. So I'm going to start drawing the book tomorrow, A Wraith of God 3, and I'll get some more artwork up here on the old campaign page. So there you go. That's it, folks. You'll find the link in the description of this video, along with a link to my website, along with a link to Chris Stevens's Instagram, because you'll want to follow him with his groovy artwork. And when I say groovy, I mean it's really groovy. Nate 13 says Bidenomics got a brother down. Indeed, it does. That's why I really think that on election day, if Trump wins, you're going to see an automatic upturn in the economy, because people are going to have confidence that he's going to get the economy turned around almost immediately, which of course he will. So we're all hoping for that. Randy Hall for $5 Canadian. Thank you, Randy. I posted the campaign link to Wraith 3 as a reply to your Twitter post. You guys have to start doing that if half your viewers are there. Yeah, that makes sense. That's true. I post the links like multiple times daily, though, for backing the campaign, but I get what you're saying. I need to put it in there. I got to do a better job of promoting myself, but that, you know. I don't know if I pinned it yet. I got to do that too. See, I'm just, yeah, okay. All right. We launched really good. I'm not complaining anything like that, but we launched really, really good, right in line with the other 2 Wraith of God books. So, you know, we're on schedule for what we've been doing. So I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, I have not been great at a couple of those things that you guys just mentioned. So I will, I'll get on that, I promise. Okay. All right. So do you guys want to, should we announce the winner? Okay. Let me do this first. Kit Carter update. The books shipped, both soft covers and hard covers shipped on Thursday and Friday of this past week. They are in the mail, basically. Well, they're FedEx ground, but they're being shipped. So it's coming from Indiana. So I'm guessing it's going to take probably about a week for those to get here. So we're looking at probably Thursday, Friday of next week that these books will show up. I'm not guaranteeing that because it's out of my control, but I'm assuming that's about what we're going to be looking at. And what I like to do is get out at least like 10 orders, like the very first day those books come in, and get them sent right out, because I want you guys that get those orders to start talking on social media and going, he's delivered again, that kind of thing. So we get them out immediately, because it just irritates me. It takes so long every time I do one of these campaigns to get the books back from the printer. It's just been a harsh reality of, the situation that I'm, oftentimes waiting 2 months to get the books back from the printer, and it just drives me nuts. But there's nothing I haven't been able to solve the problem yet. So anyway, there you go. So let's do this. So here's how it went down. We had 393 orders on Wraith of God backers before midnight on the opening night. So what I did was I took 4 pieces of paper, 1 through 100, 101 through 200, 201 through 300, and then 301 through 393. And I folded those up, put them in a bag, shook them up, and then had my mom reach in and pull one out. And then once we determined what section we were in, I had my mom randomly pick a number. And she didn't even know what I was doing it for. I didn't even tell her, because I just, no bias here, folks. Perfectly, honestly, legit. So there can only be one winner, because there's only one piece of artwork. So your odds are slightly better at winning this than the lottery, but I wanted to, do something for you guys that were out there early and backed early. And so anyway, here we are. Drum roll, please. The winning number for this piece of artwork, 11 by 14 inked. You saw me do it or most of it on Graybeards. I finished it up, obviously. Yeah, clean up some of this pencil stuff around here. But anyway, that's the piece, and that will ship out immediately. I'm not going to wait for the campaign to be filled. I'll ship it out, tomorrow probably. Here we go. The winner is contributor number 93 is the winner, and that is Chris Salomon. Chris Salomon, who sounds like a Lord of the Rings villain, but it is indeed the winner of this piece of artwork. And I had my mom do it because I was like, there's some of you guys, obviously I know many of you guys and your names and stuff, and I come up and I'm like, oh, she deserves it, or he deserves it, so I just rando. So there you go. Chris, I don't even know if Chris watches the show, but I know he backed. So if he's not watching the show, he'll get a surprise here in a few days when that shows up as the winner of that little lottery auction. I should do that more often. That was kind of fun. So we shall see if I produce any more artwork that I can that's how I'll get rid of all those Graybeard sketches. I'll just start, doing a lotto. Anyway. Okay, so Chris will be rolling in here shortly. So we have just enough time to squeeze in our Frazetta image of the day. And we're doing all of Frazetta's Death Dealers, if you recall. So I think this is Death Dealer number 5. Let's take a look. That was weird because if you guys noticed, the paperback cover was altered from the original painting. And I'm not even sure if they didn't go in. I don't know if it was done digitally. Of course, that would have been 1990, so unlikely. But it was touched up and changed. Like the background was changed. Some of the costume elements on the Death Dealer were changed. And so it makes me wonder if Frazetta went in there and doctored that up, or if somebody else doctored it up. I can't imagine why. Now, of course, in around 1990, I think Frazetta was having trouble with his thyroid problem and stuff. So I don't know actually how much art he was doing. It's very possible someone went in there and doctored that, and it wasn't Frank. I don't know, but it's interesting nonetheless. But I really like that painting, Frazetta's version. There's only actually one, the one we saw week 3 of this. It would have been, it was Death Dealer 3, where he's just kind of standing there. I mean, it's still Frazetta, so it's still great, but not probably my least favorite. But this I like this one a lot. Number 2 and number 5 are probably my favorites. But there's still more. I think there's at least one more to go over. So we will do that in the coming week. And so I want to also take a moment to say that we have the return of Renee on Graybeards this week. So Irene Stykowski, it's a tough one, will be joining us on Graybeards on Wednesday. So you want to check that out. Yeah, there you go. She can't be on because she doesn't have a beard. The first time she was on, she wore a fake beard. Let's see if she does it again this time. I don't really sort of make my hosts my guests wear a beard, but if they, if they don't already have one, if they're willing to go full beard, then I'm totally on board for that and support that, wholeheartedly. I can't even talk. So my son and his wife are going to happy hour today, and they're taking the baby with them. And I said, "You're taking your baby to happy hour?" And I said, "Isn't he a little young to drink?" And they said, "Well, we're not drinking. We're just going for the food." And I thought, which is fine. I mean, I don't drink either, and I don't encourage drinking, but can you go and get happy hour without ordering a beer and just order the food? Or do they get a little frowny, a little upset with you if you do that? You know who's a guy who might be able to answer this question for us is our guest today, Mr. Chris Stevens. He's to say he's a talented cover artist and illustrator would be an understatement. Incredibly talented, maybe would be the way to phrase it. But anyway, I want you guys to welcome back to the show the guy who contributed once again to my campaign in a spectacular fashion, Mr. Chris Stevens. Hello, Chris.
How you doing?
Good. I am really good. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
It was kind of hesitant. Yeah, not too bad. So can you go to happy hour and just eat the food? Do they frown on that, do you think? If you don't get at least a beer or something?
I think you could do that. I've never done it myself, but why not, right? I mean, they're selling food.
Well, I've been to, we used to go to happy hour like back in the old days when I was young. And we would go to happy hour because it was cheap food, right? But I don't remember if somebody, part of our group, whoever went, I would have seemed like always would have at least had a beer or something. Now, I'm not much of a drinker, so I probably didn't. Although I've been known to go to like taverns and stuff for the food and then out of guilt order a beer just so that they feel like I'm contributing to the cause, and I'll, have a couple sips and then eat my fish and chips or my burger or whatever and move on. But anyway, interesting. So actually, it's not that interesting. So we'll just move on from there.
Drinks is where they make all their money. So that's where all the profit is.
Right. So I always felt bad if I. Right. And I always felt guilty going in those places and not ordering a drink. So I'll always order a beer, even if I'm not going to drink it, just so I feel like that, I've contributed to their cause. All right. So here's the story. I'll tell the folks out there. I originally contacted you about or asked you to do a cover for, I think, the very first Wraith of God book. You were unable to do it because of scheduling. So then when Kit Carter rolled around, I asked you to do one of those, which you did. Turned out great, fantastic cover. But then you contacted me later and said, yeah, I really want to do a Wraith of God cover. And so I said, well, if Chris wants to do it, who am I to stand in his way? So then I got you to come back and do a cover for Wraith of God 3. Now, and it turned out fantastic. The fans absolutely love it. I've been getting nothing but people just going, oh, this is amazing. Let's take a look at it. Let me see. Let me find the copy without the trade dress on it. Now, when you originally did this, there we go. This is, the Wraith is more blue in the original.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
you had sent me one that was darker. You had darkened it up. And I kind of did a new one myself that was sort of halfway in between what you did and halfway between the original. And because I didn't want the Wraith too dark that we were potentially losing some of the detail. But I like the idea of the Headless Horseman being a darker horse, and which had really come out when you altered it. So I've been messing around with it, and we may still mess around with it before we actually go to publication. But I'll tell you, the more I look at the original, I kind of dig the blue even more so. I mean, because it's kind of, I don't know, it gives it a little bit more life to it, because it's rather subdued, the color palette, the way that it's adjusted right now. And this has some nice bright colors on it that I'm not actually afraid of. So this may end up being exactly what it prints as than what we're showing right here.
I was, you and I are both influenced heavily by guys like Gil Kane. And when I was originally coloring it and everything, it is pretty subdued for me. I like to go really bright with my colors, but I was trying to create a mood for the book and kind of keep in tune with what you were doing. But then when I finished it, I thought it was too light for what you were doing with the Wraith. So when I came time to scan it in and digitally touch it up and everything, I just decided I would darken it up a lot because he didn't look enough like your Wraith. And then when I showed you, you were like, man, I don't know. I kind of like the lighter version of it. So I was like, well, I'm cool with it either way, that you can see the line work better on the original.
Well, but I keep going back and forth on it, and I'll show you something here. I don't know if you've actually seen the campaign, but let me show you.
I've got it right here. I've been looking at it.
Okay. So if you look at, speaking of Gil Kane, right? I didn't use real dark colors on any of this because I don't like to lose the detail. This is probably the darkest, this EC tribute cover.
Yeah, that's great.
But thank you. But it's still not that dark, right?
Not too much.
This one, the Gil Kane one, I mean, that yellow is like counterintuitive to what a book like this would be colored like,
That
but I love it. And so it makes me kind of feel like going back into this one and just going, you know what? Let's just go full color with this and have it blue, the full blue. But like I said, I've got a few months to think about it. And I'll what I'll do is we'll give a couple of versions, and then I'll send them back to you with trade dress, and we can discuss what we because you're the artist, and I want it represented the way that you best, that you're happy with it, as well. So, but anyway, let's talk about this. if we may. All right. So last time I had you on, we talked about your technique and how you do these things. And I remember David Williams and I were just like, he's talking like voodoo or something. It was like, what is he? We can't really, you have just the most unique approach to this. So
it's the funny thing to me that people say that, and to me, it's the only way that makes any sense with these mediums, markers and stuff. You know, it's the only way I ever could do it. Like when I see people do it other ways, it's like that seems weird to me. So it's funny when people kind of seem confused by it, or like, act like it's kind of weird. But
well, there's a traditional way to do anything, right? That you would go, say, to art school or whatever and learn how to do it. And then there's ways that we figure out how to do certain things on our own, just, by happenstance. And it always amazes me, the artists I talk to that like use watercolors like oil paints, or they use, some other medium in a way that is not traditionally how it's used, but they get fantastic results. Yeah. Now, on this particular piece, you can just tell by looking at the back, all the marker bleed through, right? So you used a lot of marker on this. But, so you took a regular 2-ply bristle like you do for a comic book cover, correct?
Yeah, it's mixed media. It's a Strathmore 400 series.
Okay.
Mixed media.
All right, there you go, guys. Strathmore 400, write it down. So do you do I know you do a prelim because I saw the prelim for this, but is it a prelim to give you an idea of how the finished drawing is going to be, or do you light table your prelim onto your board and then clean it up, or or you just draw directly onto the board the finished, what's going to be
I pretty much redraw it.
Okay.
I do a prelim thumbnail kind of thing for myself, and in your case, for you, the client.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't usually bother blowing it up and light boxing it unless I feel like I really got something special.
You really nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, sometimes that'll happen in thumbnails where you're just like, man, I really got what I wanted out of that figure or whatever. But most cases I'll just redraw because it's just easier for me than trying to take it, blow it up, do it, all that stuff.
It does get tedious light tabling your own drawings, right? Because it's like, I've already drawn this, and it's just like And
even when you do that, you still lose it most of the time. Like you blow it up and you try to light box it and everything, and it's gone. It's like whatever that magic was in that thumbnail, you lost it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. A lot of times I will thumbnail a figure or light table a figure that I really like the flow of the figure, and then I'll just leave the face, because you can never. It's always on faces where. You just cannot capture that face because it was. And so I end up just redrawing it anyway. But
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you pencil this on here. Then do you ink it traditionally speaking, or as a stage of this, or what's your next step after you pencil it?
I've kind of gotten into a process of like, I do a very basic thin line work, like structure. Like I'll go in and I'll take like a brown pen and do like the basic lines, no rendering or anything, just kind of outlining all the important stuff. Then I go to color. I'll do like a first color layer, which could be sometimes in some cases it might just be a solid brown, just color the whole thing in a brown.
So you do like a value painting or value color. Right. Okay.
Like a little bit of an underpainting, but with markers. And then I'll go back in with my watercolor and I'll do all of my rendering at that stage with the watercolor. And then I go do my full color layer, which is, where I'm adding all the actual color stuff. And then I ink it at that stage.
So you do all your color work first, and your inking is the last thing you do, obviously, because you want that black line really strong.
Right. With that strong, and then as the last stage is the color pencil stage. So if I want to soften certain things or push certain things back with color pencil, I can do that on top of the lines, and I can kind of push those lines back if I want in certain areas. I did that a few times on this piece, where I kind of went in and just like on the horse, I think there's a few areas where I went in with color pencil and just kind of punched up a few highlights, and then went over some of the line art to kind of soften it a little bit so it's not too harsh of a line. I don't even know if I could tell by looking at it where it is, but I do that. I've been doing that more recently. In fact, I think your Kit Carter, I think, was one of the first times I did that, and I've been doing it ever since.
So are you, when you say using watercolors, are you using watercolors or are you using acrylics? Or both?
It is water. It's a Dr. Martin's bleed proof white.
Okay.
So it's just white. I'm not actually adding color with watercolors.
All right. This is the part that freaks me out that I could not wrap my head around, is the putting the white on. So do you cover the entire painting in white?
Yeah. It's it's got the undercolor, which would be, I think I did brown on this one.
Right.
So I did an underpainting, or kind of colored the whole thing brown.
And that was in marker.
Yes, and then so no rendering, just a solid brown, and then went in with my watercolor white and just did all of my texturing and highlighting and all that stuff at that stage with the watercolor. In fact, that white back there behind the horse, that's all raw paint there. So you're seeing what the paint itself looks like without anything on top of it.
Okay. I was going to ask you if that was colored pencil or if that was paint.
Yeah, that's paint there.
Well, so how do you delineate, if you're using white to cover this up, you're not using it opaquely, correct?
I do. And if you look at,
go ahead,
at the whitest area down there behind the horse, or like the moon area there, that's a solid opaque paint, or at least it's as opaque as it can be anyway. I think I touched that up digitally so I could make it more white, but it's not solid white, but it's as close as it can be. It's as opaque as it can get. But you can go back over that with marker and kind of you can tint it. It's like you're tinting it kind of with the marker inks.
What's the benefit of going over everything in white? Is it putting down a new layer that takes the paint over the top of it better?
Well, it's kind of cool because once you have your paint layer down, I can kind of change the color. Like I can do color something blue, and then if I decide to warm that blue up, I can go over it with like a light orange and actually make it like a light orange on top of blue, and it kind of gives it a warm blue look. So it's that paint kind of, I guess because it sits on the surface, it's not soaking into the paper as much. You can kind of glaze it almost like you're adding color to the inks, and completely change the look of it if you decide to afterwards. Like you just say, well, I don't want that to be quite that blue or whatever, and you can add a color on top of it. It lets you kind of layer your colors in a way that is different from just doing it on the paper, because on the paper, the inks are mixing, going into the fibers and just kind of mixing, and you end up with like a muddier kind of color.
Right.
But if it's on top of the paint, it actually looks much cleaner, and you can really change the color of things. I'm not sure if there's too many examples on this one. I mean, maybe a little bit. Like if you look at the shadow on Esther there.
Yes.
Like I probably colored all of that like her dress, and then I went back in with like maybe a light blue and kind of cooled down that shadow. And I did that afterward, so it's kind of nice that you can. In fact, there's Esther. I had to create that color for Esther's dress because I didn't have a marker that was quite right. So I had to actually layer a couple of colors on top of each other to get that color. And I couldn't do that without painting it first. Okay,
I get it. I did an acrylic painting not too long ago for my Kit Carter campaign for the movie poster. And whenever I screwed something up and said, I don't like the way that looks, especially on her spacesuit, I went in with white over the top of it, white acrylic, and then just started over. And as I was doing that, I started to think in my head about what your process was, and it started to make a little bit more sense to me. So now in the original, this violet dress of hers is darker. It's more violet than we're seeing right here. So you go over this with brown, a sepia, we'll say, right? The
Yeah.
whole thing. And then you hit it with your white, correct?
Yeah.
And that sort of establishes your values where you have your really hot highlights and maybe your areas that are darker. And then
Exactly.
you go back over the top of that with markers again and then colored pencil. Is that correct?
Yeah, the full color stage of the markers, then the inks, and then the color pencil as a last kind of effect on there.
Are
For
you
just for certain things.
are you using Copics? Or what
Yeah.
markers do you use? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, colors.
So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I wouldn't mind changing, doing different markers besides Copics because I hate the way they change their refills and everything. Because they used to have those chunkier refill bottles, that
Right.
were $7 each, and then they
And I get
switched
the
to these
little
really
tiny-
skinny,
Yeah.
really skinny ones. They the same price. It was like,
Yeah.
man, half the
Same
ink for the
price or
same
more
price.
with half the ink. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I was so mad when they did that. I was just like, man, I was really tempted to just get rid of Copics altogether after that. I still might.
Well, I'm mad at it's a Raphael, the Kolinsky brushes. They don't make the 102s anymore that I've used for years for inking. They just drop that. They still make brushes, but they just don't drop the one. They just drop the one I used. I'm like, what is that all about?
Is
And
that
and these are Cola Race light blue.
yeah.
No, they're not the animation blue. They're light blue, and they quit making these. And I draw with these all the time, and you can only get them in like if you buy the complete set of colors, but you can't just buy like a box of these light
Oh,
blue.
no.
They have every other color,
Uh-huh.
but you can't get these. So I don't know
That-
why. It's like art supply places and manufacturers, they look to certain people and say, oh, that's all this guy uses. We're going to cancel this now. Or piss them off, you know?
That's happened to me a few times, yeah, where I find something I like and then you can't find it anymore.
Yeah, they quit making it. So, all right. So you've got your white on here. So you basically have your value painting, and then you start adding your color with markers, and then you're going to go in with colored pencils over the top of that marker in areas where you need to. Now, do you have to go in and punch up your highlights, or are you just using the highlights like you really like on his up here on his hair?
Yeah, that's. I think I might have even used a paint pen or something on those, just like a gel pen or something to kind of hit those areas. Because you do, yeah, stuff like that does getting like really good whites or anything, or it's kind of hard to do. White is always a problem. I don't know what it is, but there's no pen that exists that is really good, or a marker or any like. White is just always a challenge. But yeah, I probably did there. And of course, anytime I do a halo, like an outline, if you see Esther there, that was probably gel pen.
Really?
Yeah, it's probably a jelly roll pen.
Man.
Yeah, some jelly rolls can be pretty good sometimes, but they're inconsistent, but they're not too bad.
I would have never thought that. I probably would have. Well, Presto has a whiteout pen. The problem is the tip on it is square, so it sort of limits, the kind of line you can get. Whereas something like this, those jellies they have regular pen tips.
Yeah,
Right?
they're balls. They're ballpoint.
Yeah. You're making me rethink my use of tools here, and maybe there's a better way, a more efficient way to to get some of these effects. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say they can be good. They're not. Sometimes they'll drive you nuts and they'll never give you what you want, and then sometimes they'll work perfectly for a while and you don't know why. And so they're a little finicky, but they can be pretty usable, pretty useful.
Are you one of those guys that you kind of reach for whatever's closest by, or are you very organized in terms of what you're going to use at what stage and got and rather than, you know, just reaching into your tray and going, oh, this will work kind of thing. Because I know guys, I mean, I do that to a certain degree myself, but I'm just curious.
I'm very disorganized. I'm very I have stuff all around me, and yeah, I will be that guy who grabs something because I can reach it, you know, and it's
Yeah. And then someone says, what did you do that with? You go, I don't remember. It was something that was sitting nearby. I know
yeah,
that.
it was there, you know, it was like within reach. So I tried it out and it's like, that's not too bad. You know, I mean, I have my tools. I don't use a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of settled on a few things that I like to use for everything.
Right.
So I've got a bunch of those laying around in different states of like deadness, you know.
I know. I got pen. This is the worst thing. Like when a pen dries up and it's the last one you have, and you're like, oh, you know. Do you have an art supply store close to where you're at that you can like make a quick run and get something, or is it everything I got to go to Amazon and wait, you know,
Well,
2 or 3 days before it shows up?
I'm a dig blick guy.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
every month I'll make an order, but you know, if I need something local, like today,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of screwed because I have Michael's and I have Hobby Lobby, and
Yeah.
neither of them ever have what I'm looking for. So,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've experienced that myself, and it's just kind of the closest art supply store is probably a 30-minute drive from me, which, you know, all said and done, it's not that bad. I can make a trip and, you know, go get something, but it's actually a Blick store, but they don't have everything, right? And so
yeah.
I often get myself stuck in a situation where I'm like, I need this right now, and I can't get it right now, and it just, you're like, trying to figure out, okay, what can I do for 2 or 3 days while I'm waiting for this to show up so I can finish that? That's insane.
Yeah.
But all right, this is a tremendous piece, and this is your highest tier, because I remember you told me I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but it was like, well, do you want something like really, really fantastic, or do you just want, you know, something in this price range? And I'm like, dude, I want the best you can do. I don't care what the price is. Just give me that. And you really delivered here. But on a piece like this, how much time? I mean, you do a lot of these now. I mean, in terms of like commissions and covers and things like that. What kind of a time frame turnaround on something like this? Usually, is it a week? Is it 2 weeks?
It's usually a week or maybe a few days more. So it's usually about 45 hours, 50 hours.
Okay.
Around there for something like this.
So you're not one of these guys that like works 8 to 10 hours a day. You're more of like, you get
No.
good 5-6 hours and you're done.
Yeah, that's my wife. She just won't let me. Like I could do it. I probably would do it if I were having my way with everything.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just like, no, it's, you know, cutoff time. You got to stop. You have to leave the studio. So yeah, it's kind of an imposed thing. But
well,
yeah, I have a
mentally healthier.
Yeah, probably
get away from it for a while, because I'm an obsessive worker myself, and I will just go. But the thing is, I am very fidgety, so it's like I'll work for 2 hours, then I got to get up and just go do something for 10 minutes, come and then get back, and you know I can't sit there and work like 8 straight hours. I've got to get up and then, but I end up working 8 to 10 hours a day at times. But there's always like little breaks in between because I'm so fidgety. So
yeah,
as you can see, I'm constantly doing this in my chair and I can't sit still. So anyway, okay. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at some of your other stuff. We did that before when you were on last time, but that was so long ago, I don't remember what I asked you. So I'll probably ask you all the same questions again. But I think I've got some artwork we didn't show last time. So, but anyway, this is one of the cover options you have for Wraith of God 3 Fear Hollow. This, of course, is by the great Chris Stevens, who's joining me right now, in case you're wondering, who's that guy Aaron's talking to?
Yeah. Well, thank you to everybody who's ordered one. You know, all the Aaron's. I love your options, man. Your covers are beautiful.
Thank you, sir.
I can understand why, you know, the A cover is doing so well, because it's just a killer cover. But I appreciate everyone who decided to get one of mine. You know, so that's really nice. I hope it does well. You know.
Well, I have two rules of thumb when I bring in a guest cover artist. He's got to be better than me, or more popular than me, or both, and it's going to do something different than I would do. So I got all of them covered with you,
I definitely
and
did something better, or I did something different than you would do. That's for sure.
yeah, it was. No, I got to tell you, man, when I opened that up, I could not believe it. It was so good. I was so thrilled.
No,
And just sitting on this for literally months, because you got this done in June, and I was originally going to launch the campaign in June or July, and things got slowed up on Kit Carter, so I couldn't do it when I wanted to. So I was sitting on this cover, and everybody's like, "Oh, show me the cover." I'm like, "Nope." And who did it? I'm not going to say, and I was so hard to not share it. So I'm glad we finally get to do that. But anyway, let's take a look at some of your other stuff. And I probably asked you this before, but were you a comic book kid growing up, or is it something you discovered later?
No, I was definitely a comic book kid. It was 1985 for me. I was 9.
Okay.
And a friend of mine introduced me to Marvel. That was when Secret Wars was going on.
Yes.
And he just got me so hooked into what was going on there. And I got that Sears comic book kit that year for Christmas. It was like 2 issues of every title that Marvel had, like an instant collection kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've been a fan in one way or another ever since. So, yeah.
Phil Diaz says this cover is so good. Of course, referring to yours, Chris.
Thank
Phil,
you,
I was supposed to be on Phil's show Friday night, and I totally spaced it. And I feel so bad, but I'm going to be back on this Friday night, I believe. And Phil, again, my sincerest apologies. I hate it when that happens, but I started working, and then I just lost track of time. And then it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I went to Twitter, and I saw these messages from Phil going, "Where are you?" kind of thing. And I went, "Oh, no." So, because we don't, nobody calls anybody anymore on the phone. They just, drop messages. And if you don't happen to check your messages for whatever reason, you get yourself in trouble. So, Chris, thank you for being here. You're much more responsible than I am.
Oh, no problem. I mean, that's kind of baked into this. You want to do a cover for somebody, you gotta appear on their podcast or whatever.
I warned you way in advance. I said, okay, you're gonna come on my show now.
Yeah.
All right. This isn't the greatest picture of this because it's not very high res. But the reason I bring this one up first is because is this like the biggest painting you've ever done?
Yeah, it is.
And it was like 18 by 24 or something, right?
It's 24 by 36.
Oh my gosh, 24 by 36.
Yeah.
There is a picture of you standing next to it, but it's so tiny and the res is so small, and I didn't even bother. But so this is essentially the painting, right? There's more background to it, but it's essentially just a big Spider-Man, right?
Yeah. This was an experiment. This was to see if I could take what I do on normal size stuff and translate that to this size and maintain the level of quality with the line and paint and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I still don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it, but
are you not done with this?
No, it's the image is done, but as far as like what do I do with
so it wasn't a commission, it was just you wanted to do this to kind of challenge
yourself. It was me just wanting to try it, and once I'm actually working on another one now as a commission based on this, but not it's not going to be this at all, but it's a totally different thing. But it's a poster size, 24 by 36.
So you did the exact same technique that you did on my cover for Wraith of God 3.
No, this is acrylic.
Okay.
This is acrylic.
Okay, so you went in with just did an acrylic painting.
Yeah. So this is acrylic base with inks on top. So it's and
okay.
I was pretty happy with with the way it translated as far as like my work goes. It doesn't look that different from what I would do at 11 by 17. So I was like, all right, I could do this. It's an option for stuff, and it was kind of fun because I just never did anything this big. It's huge. In person, you see it in person, it makes a pretty big impact because it's just this big giant thing.
And bright colors as well, and it just really, I bet it really just pops.
It does.
You guys,
cool.
if you want to see a better shot of this, go to Chris's Instagram. Again, the link is in the description of this video. You can go, it'll take you right there, and you can start following him on Instagram. I say the same thing about Rick Baker. If you're not following Rick Baker on Instagram, you're missing a lot of stuff. And if you're not following Chris Stevens, you're missing a lot of cool stuff. So I wanted to bring that one up first, because I know that you had done that. Now this is interesting to me, because I want to find out exactly what you did here on this one. I don't even know how old this was. This may have been a while ago. I don't know. How long ago was that? Do you remember? What do you got?
This is really, actually, there's a date. I think it says.
Yeah, 23.
No, it says 13, I think.
Oh, 13. So this is an oldie.
This is an old one. Yeah.
All right. So this like all this stuff up here is marker on his arm and things like this, right? It's very reminiscent of when you were doing your grayscale stuff, right? This is all marker, right?
No, this is an oil painting.
Oh, for crying out loud, wouldn't it? Because I was going to ask you what the heck you did with the background.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this is real. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is really interesting to me, because you are essentially maintaining your stylistic quirks, even though you're using a completely different medium. That is really cool.
Yeah, this was when during a phase where I was really kind of hoping that I could be an oil painter. You know, maybe I'll focus on oils and try to make that my medium. And I didn't stick with it for, I guess, a couple of reasons. One was just the drying process and everything. Yeah. How it's impractical for like commissions or even public work is kind of hard to do with. So I don't know. I got afraid of committing to it because of that. You know, like they can be a little sensitive and delicate. The originals, they can scratch real easy. I just wasn't sure. You know.
Did you do this on board or canvas? I'm going to guess board.
Yeah, this was on Masonite.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Well, I got that right at least. No, it was really interesting, because the way you do the muscles in his arm and everything is exactly, I shouldn't say exactly, but is very reminiscent of how you would have done it if you'd used markers or something. And so I just found that really interesting that you did not stray stylistically, which I think is good, because I think that kind of consistency is, you know, there's a certain expectation, I would guess, that people come to you for a commission or artwork, and they, you know, like with any of us, they have a certain expectation of what it's going to look like. And so to maintain a consistency across different mediums is really cool, because a lot of us don't necessarily do that.
There's a part of me that kind of hates that. Like I want to go to a new medium and do something new and try to discover something new about myself. And then I always, my brain, you know, it won't let me think different. Even though I'm using a different medium, I still end up doing the same basic things I would do if I were doing any other medium. So it's a good and bad, at least for me as an artist. You know, I just like, I want to see something different, but you know, it's like I have no say in it almost in terms of how I think and how I render and the way I draw stuff. It's like it all ends up the same. So for better or worse, you know,
we all get comfortable with what we think looks good, right, to ourselves, and then we get into that kind of mode, and we spend our whole lives developing an approach or a style that we can call uniquely our own, and then to kind of move away from that is really challenging. And it's, you know, I often make the comparison between, say, drawing comic books and doing portraiture, right? You can be a really good artist and you can do both portraits and comic books, but if you've been doing comic books for 20 years and someone says, hey, can you draw a portrait of my wife? You're like, because you got to retrain your brain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To do something like that. And it's the same way stylistically.
I have a hard time doing anything else. Like, you know, I think I spent so much of my life trying to be like my heroes as a child, John Buscema and guys like that. You know, I spent so much of my life trying to kind of be that superhero artist that even just any other genres, you know, like horror or things like that, my brain is like locked into that way of thinking about how to draw stuff, you know, and it's very hard to deprogram yourself and try to think differently.
Did you ever work in like 100% commercial art situation where like you were doing advertising or you were doing storyboards or anything like that?
Not exactly. No. I mean, I spent years doing stuff for like RPG companies, like
Hmm.
pen and paper RPGs, like White Wolf and Wizards of the Coast,
Right,
guys
right,
like that. But it was essentially the same. I wasn't really changing anything about my work.
right.
I
It was
changed
just
the way I drew lines and stuff because they were going to be digitally colored. So I kind of simplified my line art, but the way I drew things was pretty much the same. So I've never had to try to fit something else,
Mhm.
which I guess.
I worked in commercial art very formative years. I was young and still learning, you know, and so I don't know if it's good or bad, but it sort of enabled me to sort of move around stylistically a little bit. And so that I don't know again if that's necessarily helpful in comic art, but it was in commercial. And I think because I was in that training so early that I'm a little bit more flexible in terms of that. But it's also, I think, kept me from really having a concrete style that people can grab onto like you have, which is why I want to ask you this next question here. Let me bring up this piece. This might be an older piece too, but um, you you have a very stylized approach, meaning that you do stuff very uniquely to yourself. The way you do hair, for example, um, and the way you do your musculature, or how you define the musculature. I mean, the anatomy is correct, but it's like the way you define the musculature and stuff. How how do you how do you get to that point? Who are you looking at? What are you trying to achieve as a young artist that sends you in a direction where you're very unique in terms of your approach, that a lot of people aren't going to look at this and get you confused with somebody else?
Yeah, it's interesting because as like you were saying, as an artist, you want to have your own style. You want to have something that looks distinctive, and people can look at it and say, "Oh, that's Aaron Lepresti. Oh, that's Chris Stevens." You want that. You want something like that.
Right.
And then, in my case, when I finally got something that I felt was kind of me, I didn't really like it that much. So it's like, I don't know if there's any hope there. So you can't win, right? This I think my stuff is, if there's any uniqueness there, it's probably because my influences are so kind of far apart. Like like I was saying, John Buscema was a big one early on, but then I was in the right age to be really influenced by Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane,
Hmm.
guys like that. But then I became very obsessed with Travis Charest.
Yes, I can see a little bit of Travis in your influence in your
Yeah,
work.
I spent years like just wanting to try to understand and absorb as much of him as possible.
Hmm.
But then I became obsessed with Joe Mad for several years, and they're very different artists.
Right, but both very strong stylists though too.
Yes, yes. I mean, they couldn't. I think they're very opposite ends of the spectrum there. So I think maybe that's why my stuff is, I guess, kind of hard to read because of how different my influences are. Because when I look at my stuff, I see Joe Mad in a lot of the stuff I do. And when I
Mhm.
mention Joe Mad, people are like, really? But yeah, it's like he's still a big. There's still like, even though I don't spend much time looking at his work anymore, when I look at the stuff I draw, I think, yeah, that's a Joe Mad rib cage, or that's a very Joe Mad like hand, or
Mhm.
like certain things still kind of have stuck. You never really
Right.
know why do certain things stick. I don't know, but they become like a part of your arsenal or whatever, and you start to you just kind of go back to that when you draw things. And in certain cases, it's my mind still does. A lot of my musculature is still very much a Joe Mad influence thing,
Mhm.
and I couldn't tell you why. Like the hair, it's like, I think it's meant to be my version of Travis hair,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it never quite got there. So it's like a little bit of Travis, a little bit of maybe Joe Mad, a little. I'm not entirely sure, but
Well, I think the answer to the question is, and this is kind of what I was digging for, was that you were looking at some artists that were really strong stylists,
Yeah.
You know, Buscema's a great artist, but he's not really a strong stylist. He's just,
Right.
you know, but he draws really well.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of people are influenced by Buscema, but you don't necessarily see it in their work. But you know, Travis is has a very strong sense of style. Joe Matt has a very strong sense of style. I mean, I'm a Wrightson kid, so I'm a decade before you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Wrightson was very strong style wise. And you can see that stuff in some of the stuff I do. And you can see a little bit of Neil Adams every once in a while, because another one that was a real strong influence on me, even though I don't draw anything like Neil Adams. But every once in a while I'll do a pose or I'll pick an angle or something and you go, that's a total Neil Adams shot, you know?
Yeah.
And the same thing with Wrightson. But my Wrightson comes out of me when I draw monsters more than it does with, say, if I'm drawing superheroes or something.
Yeah.
But you came out in that, or you grew up in that era that really created sort of the contemporary stylists of comics, in that you know, Golden was a big influence to a lot of people. Arthur Adams, who was influenced by Golden, then became a big influence to a lot of people.
Yeah.
McFarlane, who was also influenced by Golden, became a big influence to people. Jim Lee, who, you know, took bits and pieces from Art Adams and other guys and came up with his style. So you have all these guys that are really super strong stylists that basically were popular when you were coming up in comics. Yeah. And so you have I have more of a throwback kind of style to my artwork. You have what we consider more of a contemporary, more look to your work, which is something I always wanted, but I could never get because I was just too late for Art Adams. I love Art Adams stuff, but I never looked at it in terms of I want to draw like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was doing that when I was 9 and 10 years old. It was Wrightson and Neil Adams were the guys that I wanted to draw like, because they were the guys, right? And so that's very interesting. So that's really, really cool. And let's take a look.
I think we all have those guys that, you know, we reach a certain point, I think, where it's very hard to change. Like we've kind of figured out what we are. And it's almost like no matter how much you like something new, it just, you can't add it to you can't add it. It's just too late to add something. Like I discovered Mike Mignola way too late. You know, like I discovered you know, like guys like Olivier Coipel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I love his stuff, and I just, but I can't think like that, and I can't change the way I think now. And
one of the challenges I had early on trying to get work before I was able to break in, and I was really searching for a style, is even at, you know, my early 20s, you know, I would look at guys who were popular and go, I got to recreate my style. And it was just so hard to do. You could maybe you could squeeze a little bit of how, you know, Kevin Nolan did some of his shading, or, you know, add a little bit more black in there, or, you know, you take a look at, you know, somebody else, but it just, I could never reshape my style. And I finally just leaned into it. I said, okay, this is how I draw. I'm just going to make it as good as I possibly can in this approach. Yeah. And, you know, now it's, you know, retro sort of come back in. So I have a little bit more visibility maybe than I, you know, did in the 90s when I was drawing like, you know, Gil Kane or somebody. And, you know, that was not in favor at the time. But one of the things I want to ask you here is, you used to do a lot of your commissions. When I first found out about you is through Tim Townsend. He had a bunch, I mean, just like a stack, as I remember it anyway, of your stuff. He's like, look at this guy, this is stuff great. And I was like, yeah, who is this? And it was all sort of this gray marker stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So now obviously you know, you're a cover artist for Marvel, for DC, I assume, you know, for anybody that'll, you know, and were you when you started doing covers and you started doing this grayscale stuff for markers, did you turn in any covers like this and then they were digitally colored by somebody else? Or you always had control over the color of the cover?
I couldn't hear most of that. That was breaking up for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try that again. I'll make it not quite so wordy.
You sound okay now.
Okay. When you do your marker stuff like this and you're doing cover work for Marvel or DC or Image or whoever, was there ever a point, like maybe early on, where you would do grayscales like this and turn these in and somebody else would digitally color them, or have you always been in control of your color?
Yeah, I've tried everything as far as covers goes. I did do some grayscale covers for Marvel,
Hmm.
and I probably did probably a good 20 of them, 15, 20 of them I did in grayscale, and every one of them looked like crap, like every one of them. Like when
Because
they,
someone came in and colored over the top of your
yeah,
grayscale, right? Yeah.
when somebody else colored it, it always looked terrible, and so I stopped doing that. And I don't blame the colorist. It was just, I think it's just hard to kind of add a good color to that and make it look natural, I
Well,
guess.
what you have to do is you have to colorize the image. You can't lay color over the top of the gray because it just gets muddy. You have to actually take the values you've already established and just like turn the face into, if it's the Hulk, you turn the face green and just let the values that you've already established with the grays be the values. But no
Yeah,
one's going to do that. They render over the top of something you've already rendered, and it's just like it
yeah,
just doesn't work.
yeah. It always looked bad, and so I've colored a few things myself, but for the most part, they've been colored by other people. And I've stuck to mostly line art because I just figured, you know, it'll come out okay at least. um, because just it doesn't translate real well. Even when I color the stuff myself by hand, like traditionally,
Mm-hmm.
it tends to get weird in the printing process, or they do something to it that
Mm-hmm.
washes it out or makes it look bad. So yeah, I think going forward, I'm probably going to make sure the colors are digital because it's not working.
So have you abandoned your grayscale work for anything other than commissions?
Yeah. In fact, I don't even have a grayscale option anymore for commission, so
Okay.
I haven't done a grayscale piece in years.
Okay.
I kind of this was like my introduction to doing marker commissions.
Mm-hmm.
I stuck with grayscale for a pretty long time actually, because I was afraid of color. Color just I didn't understand color for the longest time, and like it just I
Scares
had
all of us.
I had no color theory whatsoever. I just didn't. I knew what looked good, but I didn't know
Mhm.
how to do it.
Right.
So for the longest time, I avoided color, and finally,
Color's weird because it's intuitive and it's also like math at the same time.
mm,
It's like if you have a feel for it, you can do it without any sort of logic behind it. But there is also very mathematical logic approach to color, um, and it can be really intimidating in that
yeah,
regard. And I'm with you. I'm just like, I never know what I'm doing. I mean, I'll do a prelim color wise. Even when I was coloring my own covers, I wasn't necessarily had 100% idea what I wanted to do and was constantly changing stuff, which is the advantage of digital, right? Because you can do that. If you're painting, you better know what you're doing, or you're gonna it's gonna be
yeah,
screwed up and you can't
and
fix it.
I've gotten in trouble so many times because I don't tend to plan it out too much. I have an idea in my head of, yeah, I kind of know what I'm going to do with this, and then I start doing it, and I'm deep into the process of it, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I should have done this, and by then it's too late. You just have to go with it. It's like, ooh,
Right. Yeah, and I don't know if it's because I'm an impatient person, which I am, that I don't like to spend time like planning stuff. I'm a guy who likes to spend time doing
yeah,
stuff. And so it's kind of like I never, no, I'm not going to say never, but I rarely take the time I should to plot out my color like I really, really should before I jump in, and
yeah.
then you spend twice as long painting something because you're constantly fixing stuff, right? Is this a commission or was this a cover for Hellboy
this is
Con?
a this is a commission.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you how is the business side of comics for you right now? Are you still getting the same amount of like cover jobs, or do you find most of your work is coming from commissions now, or how is that balance right now?
Yeah, that's a big question right now. For a couple years now, I've been mostly commissions,
Hmm.
and I've enjoyed it. But I'm also always very aware that I need to keep getting stuff published because that
Right.
will that will feed into the commission side of things. You don't want to become invisible and not have your name anywhere. So I've been kind of reluctantly doing published stuff. I'm in this weird place right now where money wise, I'm so much better off doing commissions than I am comic stuff. And it's so it's hard for me to take published stuff on. It's like, well, if I do a cover this month, it's not going to be a good month, because I'm going to spend, a week and a half doing it. And that's a week and a half I'm not working on a commission that's going to pay me, 3 times as much, 4 or 5 times.
Right. You have to, and that's what came up with, we were talking about Wraith of God and everything. And I wanted the original anyway. So we just said, let's do this as a commission, because I want, and just treat it like that. But yeah, you do a cover for, I'm not going to throw, anybody can guess what the number is, but you do it for X amount of dollars. And unless you're absolutely sure you can sell that cover, you might as well do the commission.
Well, I'm not afraid to tell. I mean, I could talk numbers.
Well, most people get $1,200 to $1,500 for painted covers. Are you?
Well, if you're going to anyone other than Marvel or DC, because if you're doing Marvel and DC, they look at it as line art and color. That's how they.
They're not giving you a painted cover rate.
No, so like they don't care. They don't care like if it's finished line art or if it's just line art, or like finished cover, or if it's just line art. So they have a rate for color. They have a rate for lines.
Right. So they're giving you basically. They still do. I assume they still do rate now for cover, right? Or I mean, you're not an interior artist though, are you? You don't do interiors.
No. So
you have a cover rate. So whatever that cover rate is, and then they basically say, well, we're going to hire so and so to color it. And we're going to pay him $200 or $250 for coloring, and so you're gonna, and if you do it, that's what you're getting. So you get
if that.
Oh yeah, you're not. Yeah, that
colors are less than that usually. They're I think my rate when I was doing regular work for Marvel was $400 for line art. And if I colored it, I might have get an extra 100.
No kid, God, that bad. I was doing better than that, Chris. I'm sorry, man. That's terrible.
And
and so this was never approached as like a painted cover thing. It was just like you're doing line work with color on it. Yeah. Did you do painted covers for them, or did you digitally color your stuff when you're doing it for them?
Did I do? I can't remember if I ever did full color covers for them, like traditionally.
Oh, okay.
I think I digitally colored 1 or 2 things. I'm trying to remember if I did a full painting. Other than the grayscale, I think.
Okay, this is a dumb question, but are you intimidated at all if, like Marvel or DC, let's say they would give you a painted cover rate, right? Mm-hmm. Like say like Bisley or somebody, and they say, okay, your colored paint, your painting rate is $1,500, okay? And would you be comfortable? I mean, I know you do it all the time, but it's one thing when you're doing something as a commission, and one thing you're doing for Marvel and DC, and you suddenly feel like you're under the microscope. Right. Would you be less likely to do a painted cover for Marvel or DC than you would be a commission, or does it not bother you at this point?
I don't think it bothers me too much. Okay. My only real concern with paintings and things like that is just how is it going to print?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that you just don't know. You don't know what you're going to get. Like you submit a scan to them that you're happy with. You've got it looking right about how you wanted it. Then it comes out and you're like, God, man, this looks terrible. So
that's the biggest fear, right? Is when you paint it, you getting that to even closely resemble what, now, do you, well, let's see, for example, on the Wraith of God cover, did you scan that then? Or did you send it out to get it scanned, or did you scan it at home? How did you get the reproduction on that?
I scanned that at home, and I did a fair bit of adjustment to it. Yeah. Like I've been doing my own prints, so I'm starting to get a feel for what it needs to look like on the screen to come out the way I want it to in print. Mm-hmm. So I punch things a little overboard, just a little bit, because it'll come down a bit when it prints. If it looks like too much on the screen, a lot of that goes away when it prints. So you kind of get to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm almost uncomfortable with how it looks on the screen, which means it'll print fine. Like it'll look right the way I want it to. And the companies don't know that though. So I think what they do is they get the image and they think, that's a little too crazy or too much, and they push it down before they print it, and then it comes out washed out or kind of dull looking. And I had that recently. I did covers for Skybound. I did Transformers. I did Void Rivals, and I did Frankenstein cover. And
whoa! You did a Frankenstein cover for who?
Skybound. Skybound has Universal right now.
Was it a Karloff Frankenstein?
Well, it was. I didn't know that they didn't have the Karloff rights.
Oh boy!
So when I first submitted it, it was very Karloff looking, and then the guy came back. That's a whole other thing with Skybound. I went through like 4 different people just doing 3 covers. Like, oh, they don't work here anymore. It's like, holy, what is going on over there?
Licensing is always a nightmare. It's always a nightmare.
I just assumed when they had Frankenstein that they had Karloff. I just didn't think about it, and so she didn't tell me otherwise. So when I did the cover, they were like, "This looks a little too much like Karloff." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I got the likeness or not.
Yeah. Oh, I did a good job. All right. And they're like, "Well, no, it looks too much like Karloff. We're going to need you to change it, And so I was like, oh crap, like I went in digitally and like made a bunch of changes to his face and kind of pulled it far away from Karloff as I could.
So do you have a scan of the original that looks like Karloff?
Yes. Well, yes, I do.
And I think you probably should show that to me. Is what.
Well,
Chris, I got to see this cover.
The funny thing is, I didn't think it looked. I tried to make it look like Karloff because I had no idea they didn't have the rights. So I submitted it. Now, my first thought was, well, I'm sorry, it's not a great Karloff, But he's like, no,
it was better than you
looks
thought.
too much like him.
I had a Xena cover I did. Oh God, who is it for? Dynamite, I think. And they didn't tell me they didn't have Lucy Lawless's likeness because when I had done Xena before, I'd done Xena for Topps Comics, like in the early '90s, right? And
they're doing Xena without Lucy Lawless's likeness.
I know, and so I did this cover, and I was really happy with it. The likeness was really good, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have her likeness." I'm like, "What?" So I had to do like a paste on of another, and it doesn't. It's like it just doesn't work well, and it just was so disappointing because it was such a nice cover, and then what got printed was not as great. So
that's really weird. Yeah, I mean, like the Karloff thing, it's like they have the makeup rights, which is the distinct kind of
the flat head and the bolts, that kind of crap,
right? The gash, all that stuff. The makeup, but it's very hard to do that makeup and have it not look like Karloff, especially if you have a kind of a realistic style like I have. If you're cartoony or something, you can easily pull it off. But if you're kind of doing a realistic Frankenstein with that makeup on, it's almost inherently going to look at least a little bit like them. So when I wasn't sure if they were going to be okay with it until I saw the solicitation for it. I was like, well, I guess it's okay because they're definitely worried about Karloff's family, or whoever.
Oh, sure, yeah,
coming after him. So, it still looks a little like him. I mean, even though I changed a bunch of stuff because it's the iconic makeup.
Well, I want to see your original before you changed it. So you send me a scan at some point. I'm going to bug you till you said I'm a huge Universal Monster fan, so I want to see it.
Yeah, I was excited about it, and I did a best Karloff I could, the best one I could, and then I found out that wasn't what we were going for.
So when someone comes to you with a commission like this Hellboy one we're looking at, which is fantastic, by the way, I love this. How much leeway does someone say, hey, I want a Hellboy, or do they come to you and say, oh, can you do a Hellboy and this, and I'll make sure you include this in there, and I want some of this in there, or does it depend?
For the most part, I've been fortunate enough to not really get a lot of direction. It's my list mostly reads character name, like there's not much kind of input from the client too much. So for the most part, most of the commissions you'll see of mine didn't have any sort of rule or like got to have this or that. It's pretty much just give me Hellboy. So that's a nice thing, obviously, because if you get too many notes or direction, it has a big influence because I want to make sure they're happy. I want to make sure they've got what they want. So when they do tell me stuff, it's very much in my head that I got to have those things, and that can be a negative. Just trying to do what they're asking, you know.
Well, that's one of the troubles, right? When or the potential problems with doing commissions is that you want it to be a satisfying experience for you, the artist, and because then you're going to do your best work, right? If you're doing something
Yeah.
really, but then if someone comes in over the top of you and says, "Oh, it's got to be this, this, and this," you're suddenly like, it kind of takes the fun out of it, and you're like, okay, well now it's more of like a commercial art job that someone dictating do this, this, and this, and I think, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a better piece of artwork if you just let the artist, say, "Hey, do a picture of the mole man, and just go for it."
Right.
Just let them do what they're going to do.
Yeah. I mean, as an artist, I think about that. Like if I were to commission another artist, I wouldn't tell them anything. I like their art. I want to see what they do with my character choice. But some people, I think because I have an art rep now, I got Felix.
Mm-hmm.
He's a go-between, so I don't directly interact with people, and that probably helps because I remember before when I handled my own commissions, I would get notes and things, like every once in a while you get that client that just this is their opportunity to be an editor,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, can you draw this for me? And I'll be like, can I see a rough before you go on? Okay. As soon as they ask that, I'm like, oh, is this going to be okay, or is this going to be one of those guys, And I've had those instances, of not too many, but where I send them the rough, and they're like, oh, this is cool, but can you, can you do this and maybe do that a little bit and make this a little bigger and turn, okay, I'll do that, and I send that to them. Can you? It looks great, but can you, maybe do this,
Yeah.
So you get those clients once in a while when you're directly talking to people. It's there's that chance, you're going to run into that. But I completely agree, though. The less editorial there is, the better overall, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. This is a great piece. I love it. It's just a great pose, and I mean that's what you want to get, right? I mean, I would think if you're a client and or you're hiring someone to do a commission or whatever, you want to open it up and just be like, whoa, and generally that's going to happen. I mean, some artists take advantage of the situation and they, crap stuff out, but Chris is obviously not one of those guys. So, you're going to get something really, really cool. And I don't necessarily want to know what I'm getting. Now, this is an older piece, right? Because it's grayscale. I assume this was a commission, or was this cover?
Yeah, this is a very early marker commission. This was, this is probably one of the earliest ones because I was still. There's a lot of white color pencil in those days, where I kind of lay down my gray and then I go back over it with white to kind of render it. And I would sometimes go on top of that with paint. I was starting to work with paint a little bit at this stage, and I was still very intimidated by using a brush and paint and stuff. So I kind of kept that to a minimum for the most part. But yeah, so these
really hot white areas, is that a combination of colored pencil, or is there also paint in there?
That's paint. Yeah.
Okay.
Like any area that's like solid white would have been paint. And might even be just raw paper showing where I just didn't even color it. I just left it white so I could get it as white as possible.
Did you, as a young artist, and you're trying to get into comics, and were you ever considering being a storyteller in terms of doing interiors, or did you always just say, I'm a big illustration guy, I want to do covers, and that's it?
Absolutely. I wanted to be a comic book artist. Like you are doing what I always wanted to do, or at least what I thought I was going to do. Like you're creating stories, you're making characters, that was what I had planned all those years. It wasn't until I started trying to do that as a job, when I started getting my handful of early comic book stuff, where I quickly realized, like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. Like, I don't think I'm never going to be fast enough to 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 do this professionally, because it was just I felt like I was sacrificing so much of the quality of what I did
Mm-hmm.
to try to meet a deadline. And I was just, early days, it was like I didn't sleep, on those early jobs. And I was so disillusioned by like what the results were. I
Were
was
do you have done some interiors
a
early
little
on?
bit, yeah. I did a very small fill in on on a Cable and Deadpool. That was the first thing I did for Marvel.
Do you
And that
remember?
was
Do you mind telling what issue that was?
number 2.
Okay, so it's Cable and Deadpool #2. I got to go check this out. But
Yeah, it's
did you ink it too, or did you use pencil?
I did inks too.
Okay.
It was a Mark Brooks title,
Okay.
and I guess he had gotten a job on another book. He was like getting upgraded to like a Spider-Man book or something. So it was like last minute he left the book to go work on something else. And I was just like, well, okay, I'll do it. Like it happened through Udon. I was working for Udon at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was kind of like all of a sudden I'm doing a fill-in thing. It was only like 5 or 6 pages, but I only had like 5 days to do it.
Yeah.
And but I had the roughs that he had done, or the thumbnails he had done.
Okay.
And I just remember not sleeping those 5 days. I remember and I remember the nonchalance that they had about it. Like they were just like, well, the thumbnails are already done.
Yeah, you should be able to knock this out. What's the problem? Yeah.
Well, like it was the way they normalized the situation that made me say, oh hell no. Like there's just, if this is normal, like if they expect this kind of turnaround and this is what artists do, I have no chance. There's no way I could do this. And that was just the first of a few experiences I had that I just said, man, I cannot do this as like a normal job. Like people who do monthly books and stuff, there's no way.
So you did a couple other stories before you just said, I'm not doing interiors anymore. I got to focus on, cover art.
Yeah, it was, I don't know when it took me a long time to accept that I wasn't a comic artist. Like I had to kind of come to terms with the idea that I wasn't going to be what I always planned, and I wasn't going to wasn't going to do pages. Like it was just, I kind of became a cover artist without realizing it.
Right.
Where that was never my goal or my hopes. I guess at one time cover artist was like, oh, that's a big kind of cool thing. But for me, it was like, it felt like a failure in a way, because like that meant that I'm doing covers because I can't handle doing the stories,
Interesting.
So, and it took me a while to kind of say, well, if I'm going to do an illustration type thing, if I'm just going to be an illustrator, let's really try to make something out of that and be as different or develop something that's as cool as possible that makes my work stand out as a cover artist, because the other option just didn't feel there anymore.
Was there a period of time where you kind of said, okay, I can't do the interiors, this isn't going to work out, but I need to have a stronger sense of style or more refined look to my work before I can start trying to show my portfolio as a cover artist? So in other words, was there a period of time where you were just like, I'm just going to work on my portfolio and go in this direction now? Or did you just hit the ground running? Okay, I can't do the interiors, but I can do this. And you went in and showed whoever your cover work. How'd that go?
Well, it's one of those things where I almost feel guilty in a way, because the Marvel covers came to me. Like there was a guy named George Belliard.
Mm-hmm.
He works for Marvel. At least I think he still works there. And he was like an assistant to Joe Quesada for a long time. And then he became in charge of variant covers. And I guess he was a fan of mine, like the commissions I was doing. So he just kind of asked me if I wanted to do a cover for Marvel. And I was like, well, yeah, I'll do that.
What year was this? Do you remember about?
This was 2007.
So your stuff, you were posting stuff on the internet, I assume, and that was about the time when editors were starting to look at the internet and go, hey, This guy's
Yeah,
pretty good.
I
Okay.
think so. Yeah, because it would have been DeviantArt stuff like this Juggernaut. You know, it would
Yeah.
have been kind of early commission stuff that he was seeing,
Right.
the marker, the grayscale, and all that. And yeah, he just approached me about doing one, and then it just after I did the first one, I did another one, and just for years I was doing that. And you know, it never really felt. Um, that was the era that by then the variant cover was very much a big thing, and
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and it, not as maybe not as crazy as it is nowadays, but you know, it was already there. So it was
Was this
rare that
was it a slow build for you, or did you just suddenly get an avalanche of covers and suddenly you're like, oh my gosh?
it was well, it was. I worked with George, so, and he was. I don't think he was doing all the covers. I don't think
Hmm.
so. It was more of a about every month, you know, or I would do one or two covers, you know, and every now and then it would be another guy, another editor would ask me to do something, and but it never felt like it was just. I was never having to say no. Really, it wasn't like they were
Right.
throwing a whole bunch at me. Um, but I do think it's because they had so many artists and cover, you know, things going on that it was just, you know,
Well, I often say I was lucky I broke in because it was during the boom or the tail end of the boom and they needed, warm bodies to draw comics. And I just happened to be one of them. But did you were in those early years when you were doing covers, if you're only doing a couple of months, right? Obviously you're not living off that. So were you living off commissions? Were you working a side job when you started breaking in? Just
yeah,
curious.
it was definitely commission combination of commissions and cover work, and I was also still doing stuff for RPG companies,
Okay.
which didn't pay very well at all. I mean, I was living very cheap at the time. You know, I was single, I had a crappy apartment. You know, so it wasn't like
Yeah, I know those days.
yeah. So I didn't need a lot of money, so I was getting by, but I was probably just getting by. But yeah, it was a good time in my life in terms of just not needing to make a certain amount every month to live. So I was able to do these low paying gigs and try to just build a portfolio of work out there. And
How old is this piece? Do you remember?
um, not
About
not super old. This was probably maybe 5 years old.
okay.
About 5 years old.
So this is obviously a commission, but this is like a double page spread commission, right? So this is like
This is what
somebody really wanted something big from you.
this is our wall power. That's what Felix calls it. It's an 18 by 24.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I became more. I don't know if I don't think I was the first Felix guy to start doing wall powers, but I know I was one of the early ones because I remember having the conversation with him about doing bigger pieces and calling them something, and you know, so it was a thing that where at first I was like, oh, geez, 18 by 24. I mean, that's gonna suck, you know, like working that big. But now I'm used to it, and it's really not that big a deal. But for a while, I was really intimidated by working this big on a,
Right.
especially with markers. You know, it's just like that feels unnatural to work that big with markers. You know,
Right.
uh,
Now let me ask you something. Just creative question here, maybe a technical question. All the little gadgetry on Galactus's uh, armor.
yeah,
What rather than doing it just smooth, like going like Kirby or Buscema or something,
hmm
um, what was your thought process in terms of teching that up? Is there some sort of influence? Like a lot of people have manga influences for their tech. I know that I do now, and
yeah,
other people, because I don't think I'm very organic in my thinking. I'm like, give me a dinosaur comic or a Tarzan strip, and I'm
yeah,
fine. Give me something with a bunch of tech in it, and now I got to work.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what was your sort of your thought process here in creating that sort of tech look on
Well,
Galactus?
yeah. Ironically, you know, that I'm the exact same way you are, and that's one of the reasons why I do stuff like that is because it creates a texture. It creates a
Mm-hmm.
instead of it just being smooth, boring kind of surfaces that are just shiny or whatever.
Right.
It gives me something to work with, you know. So
Yeah.
I create these things out of necessity, really, because it's like otherwise I feel like it would just be too flat and boring looking.
Right.
So you know, he's really big too. Like it's 18 by 24, so his head is, you know, it's a pretty big thing, so you kind of want something going on. So I just kind of came up with a just little blocky kind of texture just to give it something fun to work on and render. And
I always wonder how much when we first saw the Star Wars ships and the original Star Wars movie that
yeah.
had all that like detailing on the outer hull.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
those little boxes and little squares and little things all over it. It's like, I think probably same principle. If you make it busy, it looks detailed and it
yeah,
looks more interesting. It catches
yeah, it
light
looks
more.
way more complex and it looks more
Yeah,
real or something. Yeah. No,
and it
it's really interesting. Like on his that visor thing uh, up here.
yeah, his baseball
I
cap.
just thought it's really interesting, this kind of stuff, and how you faded it in and out. So it's like when you do bricks on a wall, right? You don't draw every single brick because then
Right,
it looks
right.
fake, but you have areas where you see the brick and then it kind of fades out and stuff, and it actually gives it more depth, and that really it's a really nice look that you did there.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Yeah,
next time I draw Galactus, I'll be stealing this from you. I hope you don't mind.
yeah, it helps create a sense of scale too a little bit,
Mhm.
because if he's really smooth, he looks like an action figure. But if you add these little things, suddenly he feels bigger in a way, because
Mm-hmm.
he's got small details, so that
Right.
kind of helps with scale a little bit. It kind of
Well,
makes him
it
seem
creates
bigger.
that, yeah, it creates that illusion that this is some sort of working tech that has been
Yeah,
designed. It's not just some little cartoon thing they put over his head made of cardboard. So,
right. And in Galactus, of course, you can kind of do whatever you want with him. Jack
mhm.
Kirby never drew him the same way twice either. So as a
Yeah, it's
he's very
true.
flexible. He can do anything. As long as you
Yeah,
get the basic shape right, you're okay.
yeah, him and Hella and all those kind of characters, these huge headdresses.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
how do you remember that every panel? And I've drawn these guys before too, and it's just kind of like you go back and go, wait a minute, does that little dial thing on his ear? Does it look like it's just, yeah, it's nightmarish. But no, that's uh that's a great piece. And this one, I know this is an older piece. I mean, it's like 2013, but the the design and the shape and the motion in this with her cape, her hair, her body length, or that curve of her body, it's just fantastic.
Thank you.
You just
Yeah,
have a really nice sense of design, which, it's one thing to be an illustrator, it's one thing to be a designer, but if you can be both effectively, then you have superior artwork. And I think you do that really, really well.
thank you. Yeah,
Um,
this was I was pretty happy with how this turned out, and I was really into statues at the time.
mhm,
I mean, like sideshow and all the stuff
right.
they were doing in the comic book spectrum. And every piece I was doing at the time was almost as if I was designing a statue,
Mhm.
and I wanted it to look like a statue. I wanted to have like a sense of 3 dimension, and basically look like it's a statue sitting on the page there. And
You
so
pulled it off.
really, I was really
Um,
focused on that.
do
And
you ever finish a piece and go, man, I don't want to let this one go, or man, I should have charged more for this one kind of thing?
well, my wife would laugh if to hear that question too, because I'm the first. I have no emotional connection to my work,
Really?
and I don't like anything I do.
Well, I'm that way too. I hate everything I do, but every once in a while, I'll do something that I like, and then you kind of like, I really don't want to let go of this.
Yeah,
Doesn't happen
I,
very often, but
I guess there's personal pieces that I draw for me that I just kind
mhm,
of want to do it, and it might be a little harder to get rid of. Like
mhm.
it's because there's more to it than just needing, doing it for a job or money or whatever. So I felt inspired to draw something, so it stays with me a little longer.
Mhm.
Eventually, I sell it. I always do, but I've never
So
had that.
you don't have like a flat file over here with like a bunch of old artwork and stuff you keep. You produce stuff.
No, 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 it's all gone. It's pretty much all gone. I have a handful of oil paintings that were kind of personal pieces that I did, but as far as anything, yeah, it's all gone. So
Wow. See, I mean, I sell stuff. I sell a ton of stuff, obviously, but I keep like I mean, it's a little bit different when you're doing illustration because you don't have as many options. But like, I would like keep a page from every comic I drew. So I got one page, or maybe from a series, I'll keep a couple pages. Like when I was working on Wonder Woman for 2 years, I don't have a page from every single issue, but I do have a couple pages that I was like, oh, I really like this one. And sometimes it's not even what you'd consider a great sellable page, but for some
Yeah.
reason it just resonates with you. So, you stick it aside and hang on to it. Then, of course, I've got all the flat files full of stuff I can't sell, which I would love to get rid of, but I can't.
Yeah.
But so no, that's interesting because I know there's people that, I mean, I specifically know artists who don't sell any of their work.
Right.
And then there's guys like, say, you or me that just like, hey, this is a commercial art. I'm doing this to make a living. You sell it. That's just it's just built into the whole the system. But and it's different from me being a fan of your work and looking at a piece and going, wow, I really love that piece, as opposed to you being the artist creating it going, I can draw Supergirl whenever I want to. So I'll sell it, But this piece is, to me, is just one of those ones that I don't know. Just everything's working on it. It just really, really, really works for me. So this would be like a commission that I would have hoped I would have got if I had you do Supergirl for me.
Yeah,
it's a great piece.
Yeah, that piece, I was happy with it, and I made a print of it a couple years back, and it sold really well. It shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was one of those ones that I look at and say that was successful. Like that, I don't say that very often, but there are a few that I can look at and say this kind of works. Like it's just usually I can look at something and say, man, it's not bad, but I wish I really screwed that up, or I wish I hadn't done this or that. But I don't have that problem with this one. So
yeah, that's a really good point, because you can do pieces, and when I say you, I mean us in general as artists.
Yeah.
We do a piece and make a print of it, right? And it's like you always hit a couple that just sell like crazy, and you're like, okay, people really, really like this piece. And sometimes you don't even know, right? Like I've done pieces I thought were brilliant and I couldn't give them away. And then I've done ones that were like, everybody loves it. So it is kind of funny. I wanted to ask you, I'll let you go here pretty soon. I've kept you for an hour and a half. I don't know what your schedule is, but what kind of, you said you do your own prints, or do you print them on demand? Like, do you have your own like Epson printer or something, or do you go and get them printed?
Yeah, we invested in a high-end Epson printer, and we buy really nice paper from Hahnemühle and stuff. So
what I'm just curious, what model are you using?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. It's a Pro.
Is it a photo stylus, or is it it's something?
I
don't remember. Put you on the spot. Okay.
I'm not sure which model it is. I can't remember, but
I got an older photo stylus, really nice one, about a $1,200-$1,300 printer, but the doggone thing keeps clogging on me. It's driving me nuts. Maybe because I don't use it enough, but
that's probably it. If it sits, it definitely does cause problems. And just high-end printers are just like cheap ones where you spend a fortune on inks and stuff. It becomes that becomes a bigger expense than the printer by far. And paper and things like that. But we've been doing some prints, and we pretty much do them to order because of the cost of everything. We don't want to make a whole bunch of something and have them not sell or whatever. So we do really small print runs for shows and for online stuff. You never know. You just don't know what's going to sell and what's not.
Right. How many shows do you try and do a year? Do you have like a number, or is it just kind of whoever invites you, you go kind of thing?
I don't like traveling, so I kind of
with you, man.
I choose it based on what I'm willing to do as far as travel goes. We did Heroes this year, and that's probably about as far as I want to go. I'm in Florida, so it's not even that far. But I was just like, man, I don't want to go any further than this. So I do Florida stuff, local shows. Want to do MegaCon, but I haven't been to that in a long time. Did OAX last year. That was a really cool show. I'm not sure if you heard of OAX.
I haven't. I don't know what that is. I know the other ones, but
it's OAX is Original Art Expo. It's run by Bill Cox from Comic Art.
Really? Where's that? Is that in Florida?
That's in Orlando. And
really,
is it Orlando? Where's the?
Sounds interesting. Yeah. I used to go to the Spectrum shows in Kansas City, and
Yeah.
They weren't great money shows because it's a sci-fi or sci-fi and fantasy art convention. It's not necessarily a comic book show. And
Right.
but man, the artists that were there that I got to meet and in some cases buy some artwork from. I mean, I basically went as a fan. I would set up, but then I would if I made any money, I'd go and spend it, on one of these fantasy
Yeah.
artists I was a big fan of. And that OAX, man, so that's basically just an art convention. It's not a comic convention in that sense. Oh,
Yeah. Bill Cox is built. He's trying to build a version of what's that show in Italy? There's a big art show in Italy that's run every year. Lake Como.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what it's called. And it's just a big artwork celebration, comic art, thing. And it's a big event and people travel all over the world to go to that show. And Bill is trying to turn this into a version of that, like an American version of that.
Oh yeah. I'm going to have to look into that. Because I don't want to fly out. I mean, I'm in Oregon, obviously. I don't want to fly all the way cross country. I hate it. But
yeah,
that sounds like it's really interesting. It might be.
Yeah, it was really cool. Last year was the first year. And man, it's just, as a fan myself, it was amazing just to be in that room, because it was just everybody there. It's like somebody and respect, and
right.
They're along the outside of the it's basically just one big artist alley with the wall space being art dealers. So it's imagine all the big art dealers selling their new and vintage stuff, and then in the middle of the room, the rest of the room is just everybody you respect. So it's like,
wow,
it's a dangerous room to be in.
Yeah, if you don't bring a lot of money with you, right?
Yeah, I didn't make enough. I didn't make enough to buy what I wanted in that room. So
right. Well, my tastes run pretty expensive. Let me hit a couple more things here, and I'll let you go. Now, this is an oil painting, right? I'm not going to make a fool of myself twice. So you did a few of these before you said, "Yeah, I'm going to go into something that dries faster and is a little bit more easy to use."
Yeah, I was really pushing for it and trying to see, what I could do. And this was one of the ones in that same window. This was on canvas, I think.
I can see the texture a little bit in the clouds back there. That's why I was curious if that was on a board or if it was on canvas, but it looks like canvas.
Yeah, this one isn't. I don't think this one quite works, but it was a good test. Like I was trying just different things, muted colors, mixing colors, trying to see what kind of rendering I could do. Just playing around with the medium. Because all this stuff,
if you're that successful when you're screwing around, that my hat's off to you. That because it's a nice looking piece. Now here's one that caught my eye. I'm a big Frazetta fan, obviously, like most people are, right? That's not like a rare occurrence, but this, come on now, this was a commission, or was it for a cover for one of the?
This was a commission, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. It's pretty rare for me to get something that's not a superhero as a commission. So when I do get it, I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to go bonkers on this thing, because it's not a superhero. So I'm going to really try to see what I can do. And this was a lot of fun. It's my usual process, markers, watercolor, and everything. But it was creatures and big muscly dudes, and it's Death Dealer. It's fun stuff.
Yeah, and your color. See, I really like your color, because I don't tend to be I tend to do more muted colors, and your colors are just vibrant, and I love that.
I try. It can be hard, to really get colors to pop. I never feel like I get the pop that I want out of my colors, especially with marker, because marker just doesn't pop the same way like a paint does, like acrylic or oil or something.
Right.
No matter how bright the colors are that you use, I guess because it's ink and it's soaking into the paper, it just doesn't have the same punch to it. But I try.
No, it's incredibly effective, and it's one of the things I think that lends to your sort of trademark look. And so I was it just dawned on me that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle painting we just looked at. You got a commission request from the same guy I did. It was for one of the turtles and a Cerebus the aardvark.
Yeah.
And I remember doing mine. I thought, oh, this looks pretty good. Then you did yours. I was just so pissed. I was like, God darn it. Dang, you know, it was like, I didn't know he was going around asking like other people to do this. I was like, I got to go back and work on mine, make it better.
I want to see yours. I haven't seen that one.
I'm not going to show it to you.
Was it color? Or did you do like a full color?
No, it was color. It was, I think it was marker and colored pencil. And, let me see. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. It's,
I didn't know that was a theme he was doing until you told me you did one. I was like, oh, okay. I guess he asked everybody to do that.
Yeah. As long as I don't have to put it up next to yours, I'm fine showing it here if I can find it real quick. I've got these, it's the more work you do, you create these digital files on your computer and you've got all these folders, and then it's pretty soon you got tons of folders and tons of art in each folder. And you're like, where did I put that?
Yeah. Oh, I can't find stuff I did yesterday. So it's like, I just put it in here. Where is it?
Yeah, I know. It's like, where the heck is, I'm putting the search engine on here and see if it'll come. There it is. Okay. All right. Now you'll see this is a very, very based. See, it makes me mad because I look at your colors and they're so vibrant. And then I'm like, why am I such a coward? Why don't I push my colors farther? All right, here it is.
Yeah, I'm a believer in there. You can't be too bright or saturated. Oh, you went pretty bright on that.
Yeah, it still feels a little muted to me, but
well, he's gray. I mean, Cerebus is just gray, so that's only so much you can do.
Yeah, but you can go in there and make the colors deeper. And I always find that, I find this, I'll do something like this. And then if I, have the courage, I'll go in and mess around and start darkening up maybe the green shadow areas. And it's like, it's darker and it's darker and it's dark, but it punches it up, man. It electrifies it when you get that sort of that real contrast between your shadow areas and your highlights. Yeah. And I tend to stay in that middle ground because I'm a chicken. And
that's something you definitely have to get over that, because that's a fear. I had that same fear for a really long time, and I guess the more I do it, the more I'm like, I know it's going to be okay. At a certain point, you just you have a certain trust in the process,
right.
You develop a point where it's like, yes, it looks bad now, but by the time I'm done, it's going to be okay, kind of thing.
Yep. Well, every illustrator I talk to, every painter I talk to has the same story. You're about halfway done with it, and it looks like crap, and you want to throw it away. Yeah. But you just stick with it and grind through it, and pretty soon you end up with something that's really, really cool.
Yeah, acrylics are like that big time. Like every acrylic piece I do is just like I'm having that panic attack halfway through. I'm like, oh my God, this thing's awful. And then somehow it slowly starts to get better until you're finally like, no, this is okay.
That's where dude, I was doing that on that Kit Carter movie poster. I just was like, oh my gosh. And then I go, keep grinding, go, okay, that's working. And then you finish another part of it, and then it makes you go back to the other part and go, oh, now you can see where I can touch this up and make this better. But anyway, yeah. So this is my piece, which I was incredibly proud of until I saw Chris's piece, and then I was embarrassed. So anyway, don't go compare these side to side. But well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on and joining me. I do have to look at some cryptid videos. I don't know if you're into that or not. If you want to go, I will cut you loose. If you want to look at the videos, you can hang out. But,
remember, we did that last time. We were looking at some really convincing stuff. I became a believer after we watched.
Yeah, it's that. Well, do you have to go, or do you want to watch? I'll just.
I can stay.
All right. Okay. Let me. Some of this is actually some real stuff because I have to start working in actually clear videos so we can see what's going on. But there's a few questionable things in here. But let's run the intro, guys. It's time for Not Finding Bigfoot. All right. I just have Bigfoot walking on this one, and well, you guys can judge for yourself. What? Oh, wait, before I run that, we got a super chat here. Evil One for $5. Thank you, Chris. Says, thank you, Chris, for contributing the best Wraith of God cover art. You sure made Aaron's campaign even more badass. Hail Morty the Meatball. That's an inside joke, the meatball thing. Well, but this is Chris's way of complimenting giving me a left-handed compliment. See, he's saying that the campaign is great, but it's thanks to you, Chris.
Thanks to
And
me.
I do agree with that. Thank
I
you so much.
appreciate it.
Tremendous.
I appreciate
support.
that.
Okay, tell me what you think of this this video of Bigfoot here. Okay, boom. All right, so you can tell it's already blurry, right? It's like they put Vaseline on the lens, but okay, let's see if we can. So there's nothing going on here, but then there he goes. Then he appears right there. That's where there he is. This is actually one of the longer videos that you generally see about 3-second clips, but they put a little effort into stretching this one out.
It's not too shaky.
No, it's not. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah, yeah.
That's weird how you compliment things by, oh, it could be a lot worse. So I don't know.
No effort to get closer, you know.
No, and
I guess if I was gonna, if I was there, I might be reluctant to get too close, but you know, it's I mean,
he's taking a leisurely stroll. I always thought that, Bigfoot, if he's an animal or, something of that primitive nature, that he's not just strolling around for recreation. He's out there looking for food or foraging or something.
Yeah.
So I have a big problem with these videos of, him just casually strolling like he's on his way to Walmart or something.
Well, he's bipedal, so, how fast can he really walk,
Well, maybe wouldn't he be like picking at trees and maybe looking for grubs or something? I don't know.
Yeah, you never know with these guys. Who knows what kind of habits and lifestyle they have. Like he could be looking on the ground for something he lost. I mean, who knows?
Well, that's right. If he lost, let's say he was there the day before and lost his watch, and he's back there looking.
It's you got to walk slow when you're trying to find something small on the ground like that.
Right. Dejected Bigfoot, says Past Master Dan. Eric, of course.
He does look a little sad, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Eric is justifying this, saying animals don't run unless they have a reason. So,
true. Deer kind of slowly walk around.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nate noticed the beautiful birch wood. We used to have birch trees when I was a kid. I don't know what happened, if we cut those down or what, but those were always, they had that white kind of bark on them, and we used to peel off and drive my parents crazy. You're running the trees.
Does that give you an indication of where this is taking place?
Well, I would think in the northwest area, of which I am implanted here, would be, I don't know where birch trees grow. I did find out recently that blackberries grow in every state. So if you're looking for wild blackberries, you can find them anywhere, apparently. So I know they're abundant here.
I don't know a lot about Bigfoot as far as like regional things, like where they most expect to be living, or people have theories about that.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, they're showing up everywhere, which sort of makes me even less or more skeptical. Anywhere from North Carolina to Ohio to Louisiana, if you're looking for a skunk ape.
Okay.
They used to be sort of a Northwest kind of thing, right?
That's what
Oregon, Washington, Idaho, but now it's everywhere.
I'd never heard about North Carolina. I didn't know they moved far.
Oh yeah, there's been sightings. And in Florida too, but that's more of, like I said, more of a skunk ape, although I don't know why a gorilla type creature would be living in the swamp. It doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't seem right at all.
No, okay, no, we'll take a look at this. Is Predator real? What do we got going on here? Is this Bigfoot with his cloaking device on? What is going on? This, to me, is someone's animation project, but kind of cool. Some serious camouflage going on there, but I don't know. Maybe the Predator is real.
That's the full clip right there, huh?
Yeah, that's it. A few seconds, which lends to the idea that it was digitally created, because that's a lot of work. You can't do it.
Yeah, it does look. It's interesting because it looks like the way it moves is kind of interesting.
Now, I thought predators only went places that were hot. you know, like the jungle or LA during the summer. I think that's what they used in Predator 2, wasn't he in LA?
Yeah, yeah.
So
So they were in the snow in the AVP, but a lot of people don't count that.
yeah, I don't know if I'd count that as canon or not. Um, now, see, here's Eric Hutful's explanation. Bigfoots are interdimensional beings, so therefore he could be phasing in and out of dimension. And that, of course, that's why people think we don't ever really get a clear photo of them, because they're always, you know, kind of operating between dimensions or fuzzing in and out. And so you can't get a clear picture.
So we're not thinking predators. We're thinking big feet just have the ability to just phase out or
Seems
close.
reasonable. Now, you were at one time in the grand state of Tennessee, right? Or am I mistaken?
Yeah.
So that seems to me like maybe there'd be some Bigfoot country. Did you ever see anything strange or unusual?
No, I didn't go out into the bush too much there. You know.
Well, you saw Deliverance, and you're like, I'm never going out in the woods in Tennessee again. Well, that's what I did.
Like, yeah, I pretty much stuck to the city for the most part. So I'm not sure what they got out there. They do have some nice mountain areas, though. You know, some areas where a potential Bigfoot could hide.
Well, I went to a comic book shop signing there, and it was a small town. It was really nice and had a lot of like, you know, beautiful trees, and you know, you could see the mountain ranges and stuff. But it could be some wild activity. Okay, now check this. I guess the question is Pikachu real? I mean, isn't this Pikachu?
It's very Pikachu-esque for sure.
Now, I don't know if this is a fake video or if there's actually some creature that looks like this, and then they sort of stole his likeness for Pikachu.
Could they have? Yeah, I mean, could they? I don't know what that is. If it's real, they could have painted him to look like a Pikachu.
Exactly. Now, people
get a real
saying,
animal.
People are saying this is digital. Watch the sand movement. Let's see here.
Oh, the whole shot is digital, they're saying?
Yeah, let's see what happens in the mud when he moves here. Yeah, it kind of looks, yeah, it kind of does look sort of smooth in its way it flows, like maybe it's artificial right there, maybe.
Nowadays you really, I mean, the stuff that AI is doing.
Yeah, then it disappears. So, yeah, I think that's pretty, you know, if you turn that into my animation class, I'd give you an A on this, though, don't you think?
Man, I don't know. Nowadays, like that could be AI created. I've seen some crazy AI stuff.
I know, it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not. I see a few things that don't look quite natural. There's a weird little wobble or something in his face in one.
Yeah.
So it might be a real animal that's been
that they digitized over the top of.
Yeah.
Create a face saying fake movements are off and mud is fake. She's not buying that at all. Oh, John Porton does. He says that's a C+ at best. Okay, well, I'm just not up on my digital animation then, I guess. Because maybe 20 years ago this would have been an A, but now it's just average.
10 years ago that would have been mind-blowing.
Okay, but now we're not even impressed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now this is a real thing, but I was so impressed with these that I wanted to show the video. These are like giant horses. I mean, are there other giant breeds besides Clydesdales? I mean, I don't know that much about horses, but look at this thing.
Holy cow. That looks like
That's like a Frazetta Conan horse right there.
I need to see him standing next to somebody. Is there a shot of him next to anybody?
Well, let's see. I don't know if there is or not. Well, those are Clydesdales for sure right there. You need a ladder to get up on those things. Look at that.
Wow.
I would be afraid if I had a horse like that, how do you even control something that big and powerful? If he decides to get like pissed off, I mean, what are you going to do?
If he bolts, man, you're just done. Yeah, they look like two totally, like you said, those are Clydesdales, but those things look like something else. Like that bull, I think it's so thick.
Yeah. Because they look thicker than these Clydesdales do.
Is it one of those things where they're just like jacked up on testosterone, or?
I wonder, because I wonder how many giant horse species they are other than Clydesdales.
Yeah.
But Yeah, that one right there. It's just like, man, you ride into town on that thing. You got respect, boy, right there. This guy doesn't like, you don't even want to mess with him. Look at that neck on that guy. This is like the thug of horses, Look at that.
Yeah,
Got
he's
that
got
marine crew cut.
tree trunks for legs. Yeah, he's a big boy.
Jerry Roscoe says those big horses are 100% real, usually from northern countries like Iceland and Norway. Yeah, working horses.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All right. Now here's another real thing that's just really disgusting. Good thing my wife isn't watching. Look at the size of this freaking python. Look at this. This is like a 20-foot, 25-foot python.
it's like he's shedding too.
I know. It's just,
Wow.
can you, and there's people sitting there. What are they sitting there for? I'd be like, I guess if you're used to this.
Well, even they have to be kind of like, that guy's kind of big.
Yeah, I thought there were people sitting at a table. That's a motorcycle, so maybe they're not there. But obviously, someone's sitting there filming this guy.
They're right on. I'm filming him. Yeah.
Golly, can you imagine just getting up and you'd have to deal with this crap all the time? Like you lived in South America someplace?
It'd be cool to see him next to somebody to get a better sense of scale. But yeah, you can tell that thing is huge.
Man, it's like I'd be afraid to go to sleep.
And the head on that guy's got to be like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, watch your pets, man, because that guy's eating some dogs and cats, no doubt.
Yeah. I remember when I was living in LA, they pulled a, I don't know what it was. I guess it was a python it was underneath somebody's house. It was like a pet and they had lost it and it was underneath somebody's house and like cats and dogs in the neighborhood were disappearing. And they had on the news, they had them they found the snake underneath the house and they had it like extended all the way out. And it was literally the entire length of the bottom story of this house. So it was like, it was like 20 feet or something. And it's just like, man, don't be getting pets you can't take care of. You know what I'm saying? All right. I got one more.
This big,
I know. They think, oh, it's not going to hurt anything. And then crazy, man. I've stayed at somebody's house once that had like a boa constrictor pet or one of those things. And it was just like, yeah, okay, what if that thing pushes out of the, the little glass case you have and he strangles me when I'm asleep? I just, it's not something I'm really looking forward to experiencing. Yeah. Okay, I almost feel like I've shown this one before, but anyway, here we go. This is not brilliant filmmaking, but he is splashing in the water, which to me is very Bigfoot-like. Playing around in the water, maybe looking for a fish or something. So the guy, and he's got a big old, look at that, he's got a big pot belly. He's got a big old Bigfoot pot belly.
I mean, it looks like a primate to me, like some sort of gorilla or big chimp or something.
Yeah, and it could be that, and then they blur it up so you think it's Bigfoot when it's really just a monkey. Or it could be a guy in a suit and they blur it up and you can't tell it's a suit. But at least they got him to go splash around the water, which to me says you're putting a little bit of effort into it.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing something different. I mean, if it is a guy in a suit, just having him splashing in the water.
Right. It's like, you go, okay, when I say action, I want you to kind of walk over to the water. And I want you to swing your hand around like a monkey, like you're splashing for fish or something, or maybe you're trying to get a drink. I mean, so whoever put this together put a little bit of thought into it. And I respect that. I mean, give me a story that I can kind of latch onto that makes me want to believe that this even has a chance of being real. But of course, if it were real, it'd be in focus.
Yeah. That's almost the dead giveaway every time. It's like,
yeah,
why is this being filmed on a toaster?
Exactly. Well, you know what I found out when I found one of a fake film called the Gable film, which I've shown on here several times, where the guy came out, he released the film, everybody thought it was real, and oh my gosh, this is groundbreaking, blah blah blah, and then he came out and said it was fake, and then he told how he did it, and he shot the whole thing. He was in a ghillie suit, right, which is one of those hunting suits, and it was on all fours like a wild dog man or something, and came running towards the camera. Okay. And when you see the actual footage, it's just obviously a guy with a netting on him, and it's clear as day. Okay. So then he took the footage, and then, in some sort of, editing program, he started shaking it, so you couldn't see it real well. And then he affected the focus, so it was a little bit blurry, so you couldn't really tell. And then he put like scratches and stuff on it, so it looked like legit Super 8 film. And so then he has this thing, and everybody's buying it and going, "Oh my gosh, this is brilliant." And then you look at and see what he did, and you're like, "Holy crap!" So it makes you question, obviously, every single one of these films is being, especially with the technology we have today. It's like
everybody's carrying a high quality camera with them.
Exactly. So it's just inexcusable to have that much blurry and shaky.
So as soon as you see bad quality, it's like it's almost like it's a dead giveaway that something's not right, because there's no reason for it.
Right. We've had a couple on here that were actually, I thought, were pretty good, but they were only. But then for me, the telltale sign is it's 3 seconds long. If you actually got a shot of Bigfoot, you would film that thing as long as you could, as long as he was in your sight. You wouldn't just do like 2 seconds and then cut it,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So, Chris, the moral of the story is I remain a skeptic, but I think it's fun looking anyway. Maybe one day we'll find something that really just sort of changes my whole mind about it.
The truth is out there.
It is. Maybe someday we'll find it. All right, guys, I want to thank, again, Chris, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on and talk about your art and how you do it. And of course, for contributing to the campaign, which I am gratefully thankful for. And I'm just thrilled to death that I have this original here that I can hang on my wall.
It was a real pleasure. And I'm grateful that I could do it. I missed out the first time, like you mentioned, and I was bummed about that. And I really think that the Wraith character is really cool. I love that what you're doing with it. I hope this new campaign does really well for you, because it's cool stuff, and you don't see a lot of that anymore. And
thank you very much. And like I said, I'm glad you're able to be a part of it. I want to thank everybody in the chat. You guys, we could not do the show if you didn't show up to watch. And we had a huge audience today. And I encourage you guys to hit the like and subscribe button here on YouTube to help the channel grow. You guys that sent out super chats, thank you so much for that. I greatly appreciate it. And as a quick reminder, Wraith of God 3, Fear Hollow, the campaign link is in the description of this video, along with a link to my website and also a link to Chris's Instagram. If you're not following him, you're doing yourself a disservice. There's just a ton of great artwork out there. So follow Chris on Instagram, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Aaron Live. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Everybody.